The valleys of Mecca were filled with voices that called upon idols of stone and wood. The guidance of Ibrahim, may peace be on him, was forgotten. Empires that had ruled for centuries were crumbling. The voice of truth was ready to be heard again. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My beloved brothers and sisters, today we continue our journey through the life of Muhammad, peace be upon him. A journey that unfolds with tenderness, patience, and divine precision. Before revelation, before the first word Iqra echoed through the cave, before the world would awaken to the Quran, there was silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of preparation. The world had strayed far from the message of Ibrahim, may peace be upon him. Idols surrounded the Kaaba. Hearts were distant from their creator. Voices called upon stones, and the sky remained quiet. Yet within that silence, Allah was preparing a heart that would soon carry the final message to mankind, a heart that sought truth while the world slept, a heart that climbed the mountain, searching for the one who is never absent. Come with me. Let us enter the years just before revelation, the years when the whisper of destiny was growing closer and closer. In the years before revelation, Arabia slept beneath a heavy silence. The valleys of Mecca were filled with voices that called upon idols of stone and wood. Yet the hearts of men were empty. The guidance of Ibrahim, may peace be on him, was forgotten, and superstition replaced wisdom. The Kaaba, built for the worship of Allah alone, had become a house of false gods. 360 statues standing where truth once stood. Around it, the people circled in ritual, but their souls were lost in darkness. Still, amid the darkness, there were hearts that searched for the unseen light. There were those who could no longer bear to bow before what they had carved with their own hands. Among them were a few who still whispered prayers to the one above the heavens. Men like Zayd ibn Amr, who refused to eat meat sacrificed to idols, and Waraqa bin Nawfal, who studied the scriptures of the past, waiting for the final prophet that the book had promised. Each of them felt a truth too heavy for words, a certainty. And there was one among them who felt the same stirring, but stronger than any other, Muhammad, peace be upon him. He lived among his people, but was not one of them. He joined their gatherings, but never their sins. He listened, but his heart was somewhere higher, somewhere closer to the one who watches unseen. When others drank and gambled, he turned away. When they swore by false gods, his lips remained still. His silence carried a depth that made even the arrogant lower their gaze. He was now a husband, a father, a man whose honesty and gentleness had made him beloved to all. But within him grew a yearning, a need for solitude, for reflection, for nearness to something beyond the noise of Mecca. Sometimes he would walk beyond the hills until the city disappeared behind the dunes. There, under the desert sky, the wind would whisper through the sand as if reciting secrets older than time. The world around him was changing. The age of ignorance was reaching its end. The truth that had been veiled for centuries was drawing near once more. The fortune tellers found their voices faltering. The jinn who once brought them whispers of the unseen were silenced. The ancient fires of Persia that had burned for generations went out. The temples trembled. And in the lands of Rome and Abyssinia, monks and rabbis spoke in hushed tones about the signs that were appearing, signs of the final messenger. There, beneath the ceiling of stone and sky, Muhammad, peace be upon him, would gaze at the horizon as dawn brushed the world with light. He spoke no words, but his heart spoke endlessly. He would stay for nights at a time, lost in reflection. Sometimes his gaze would linger on the sun's rise, and he would feel the truth swelling within him, that the world was not abandoned, that guidance would soon return. The peace of the cave wrapped around him like a robe woven from silence. It was in those days that the Quran would later describe the contrast between darkness and the truth. لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي. There is no compulsion in religion. The right path has become distinct from error. He knew, even without revelation, that truth never forces itself. It shines, and those with open hearts see it. His heart was open, vast like the desert itself, and ready for what was to come. In the city below, some mocked the strange stillness that surrounded him. He dreams, they said. He isolates himself. But those closest to him, Khadija, his wife, his rock, saw something sacred in his solitude. When he returned from the mountain, his eyes carried a peace she could not describe. She would prepare his food for the next journey, her heart whispering prayers she did not yet understand. Far beyond Arabia, the world trembled on its axis. Empires that had ruled for centuries were crumbling. Hearts were weary of kings and gods that brought no peace. The voice of truth was ready to be heard again. The same truth that had been carried by Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, may peace be upon them. Allah was preparing the world for his final messenger, the seal of prophecy, the mercy of all creation. The Quran would later speak of that divine invitation, وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى دَارِ السَّلَامِ وَيَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. And Allah invites to the home of peace and guides whom He wills to a straight path. The silence of the cave was not empty, it was full of meaning, full of preparation, of peace. Every night was a verse before revelation. Every sunrise was a promise that the wait was ending. His heart trembled, not with fear, but with longing. And the angels, though unseen, were drawing near. Soon the heavens would open, and light would touch the earth once more. But before that moment came, there was the stillness, the breath before the dawn, the whisper before the word. The Quran would later echo that moment of purity and devotion. وَمَا لِأَحَدٍ عِنْدَهُ مِنْ نِعْمَةٍ تُجْزَى إِلَّا ابْتِغَاءَ وَجْهِ رَبِّهِ الْأَعْلَى وَلَسَوْفَ يَرْضَى. And none will be granted it except those who seek the pleasure of their Lord, and soon they will be pleased. The night deepened. The Prophet, peace be upon him, sat in the cave, eyes closed, heart awake. Below him, Makkah slept beneath the sky, heavy with stars. And in that silence, the mountain of Hira stood witness to the whispers before the light. Allah was shaping him, not through miracles, yet through stillness, through nights beneath the stars, through the quiet voice inside the soul that longs for truth. In the next episode, inshallah, we will stand with him in the cave of Hira as the heavens open for the final time, and the first word changes everything. Until then, may Allah open our hearts to guidance and allow us to walk gently in the footsteps of His beloved. Sallallahu ala Muhammad.